Alright, in this math review video, we're going to take a look at proportions and cross-multiplying. And before we begin and get too far into this, proportions, what are those? Well, proportions are basically equivalent fractions. They're fractions, two fractions that may look a little different, but they're actually equal. And what we were doing in class when we're finding proportions is I will give you one fraction, like you see here, 6/7, equals, and then I give you part of a second fraction. I'll either leave the numerator or the denominator out, and your job is to figure out what is the number missing. What is the variable? We're putting a letter. In this case, it's n. Down here, it's x. You have to solve for the variable. Find out the missing number. And we've worked with fractions for several months now, and you've got a pretty easy and fast way to figure this out. We know that equivalent fractions, well, one of the ways that I can do this is I can ask myself, well, what do I multiply by down here? 7 times what is 42? Well, 7 times 6 is 42. And if I do that to the denominator, I have to do the same thing to the numerator. I'll multiply by 6 up here. So that means 6 times 6 equals 36. So this number here, n has to be equal to 36. All right? If we take a look at this problem down here, we're going to do the same thing. Let's basically remember in class we talked about when you're finding proportions, you should always try to do the faster, easier way first. And that's asking yourself, 1 times what equals 16? Well, 1 times 16 equals 16. And if I do that to the bottom, I have to do the same thing. Excuse me, if I do that to the top, to the numerator, I have to do the same thing to the denominator. So 4 times 16 will be equal to x. So if I do the multiplication down here, 16 times 4, that's 24, carry a 2, so that would give me 64. So x equals 64. All right? So that's the faster, easier way to do it, but there's also a way that we learn to do it called cross-multiplying. And cross-multiplying, if I take the same problem here, if I write that over here, 6/7 equals n over 42. I can do the same thing by cross-multiplying. I can figure out what the n will be. If I multiply these two numbers and these two numbers, if I cross-multiply, so let's first of all take a look. Okay, 42 times 6. Well, I'll probably have to do a little work over on the side here. 42 times 6, that would be 12. Carry the 1. 24 plus 1 is 25. So that would be 252 equals, and now I'm going to multiply these two numbers together. See how I'm keeping the equal sign? So I multiplied these, 252, equals 7 times n. And we're just going to write 7 times n. Okay? Now, what I need to do is I want to know what n is. So what I want to do is I want to get n by itself. Remember, we call that isolating the variable. So I need to get rid of this n. And how do you get rid of a get rid of the 7? How do I get rid of a times 7? You do the opposite, which is divide by 7. And if you divide by 7 on this side, you have to do the same thing to the other side of the equal sign, the other side of the equation. So now, what's 7 divided by 7? It's 1. And 1 times n is n. So really, I just got rid of this 7. And now I just have to figure out 252 divided by 7. Well, 252 divided by 7, well, let's see. This would be 3 multiplied would give me 21. Subtract 4. Bring down the 2 and do it again. 7 goes into 42 6 times. Multiply it out. There we go. So 36. So n equals 36, which you can see n equals 36, which is the same thing that I got up here. So I could do the same thing down here. Now I did it the faster way and found out that x equals 64, but I could also, if I took the same problem and wrote it down here, 16 over x. If I did the cross products, let's see what we would get. Well, let's multiply these together. 16 times 4. 16 times 4 I know is 64. If you didn't know that, you could write it off to the side. 64 equals 1 times x. And what's 1 times? So 1 times x is 64. And if I wanted to do the same thing that I did up here, I could get rid of the 1 by dividing it on both sides, which really gets rid of that. So I'm left with x equals 64 divided by 1 is 64. So as you can see, I can find it here, the longer cross-multiplying way, or I can do it the short way. But it's very important to know how to do cross-multiplying, because sometimes you're going to get a problem like this where you can't do it the fast or easy way, and you're going to have to use cross-multiplying. Because we ask ourselves, look at this example. 6 times what is 10? Nothing. Unfortunately, we can't do it the faster, easier way, because 6 times no whole number will equal 10. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do the cross products method. So we'll multiply 9 times 10 is 90 equals 6 times c. And we write that as 6c, 6 times c. All right? I want c to be by itself. So I got to get rid of the 6. This is a times 6. How do you get rid of a times 6? Do the opposite. Divide by 6. But whatever I do to this side of the equal sign, I have to do the same thing to the other side to equal it out, to balance it out. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. And 1 times c is c. So I just got rid of that 6. So now c equals 90 divided by 6. 90 divided by 6, if we take a look here, doing my little division off to the side, bring the 0 down, 6 goes into 30, 5 times, with a remainder of 0. So 15 is my answer, so 90 divided by 6 is 15, so c, this missing number of my fraction, would be 15. This answer would be 15. And you could do the same thing here. Now this way it's kind of going backwards, but it's the same thing. 12 times what is 25? Well, unfortunately, nothing. I can't do it the faster, shorter way, so we're going to do cross products. 12 times 100 is 1200 equals 25 times b, which we write as 25b. Let's get rid of this times 25 by doing the opposite, dividing by 25. Whatever I do on the right, I got to do on the left to balance it out. This will cancel out those, which leaves me with b equals 1200 divided by 25. Well, it may look like a pretty big problem, but it actually won't be that bad. Okay? 25 into, no, 1, not 12, 120. It will go in 4 times, which is 100. And if I subtract that out, I'm going to get 20. If I bring the 0 down, 200. Do it again. 25 goes into 200 8 times. Or if you think 8 quarters in $2, multiplying that out, I will get a remainder of 0. So my answer, 48. So b equals 48. The missing variable right down here would be 48. So that's finding proportions using the cross-multiplying method.